Yo, what's going on? It's your boy K every day. It's your boy K. Today I wanted to take some time, man. I had somebody hit me up on IG and they was asking me questions about, how did I start my podcast? And they was asking me all these questions on how did I set everything up. So I figured there's other people out there that's wondering the same thing. So I wanted to take this time to really drop some gems on everybody, to really explain like my setup, my process, and how I go about how did I set up my podcast from start to finish. You don't have to duplicate exactly what I did because I'm no expert. I'm trying to figure it out like everybody else, but I've been doing this for a while now, so you can learn from my mistakes. You can take some of the things that I share with you guys today, and obviously you will be further along than I have. I've recorded over 100 episodes now. So I can say that I've been doing this long enough now that I do kind of know what I'm talking about when it comes to the whole process of, starting a podcast and all of that. So now that I done got all that out the way, and before I get too far down the yellow brick road, man, I would like for y'all to support my channel, go like, subscribe, sub, retweet, share, all of that good stuff. Get all of that stuff out the way. If I added value into your life, if I've helped you along the way, if I'm showing you how to build your podcast from the ground up, the least you could do is go show some love. I don't know, does that look like a heart? You can go show some love and go sub the channel. But anyway, so how to start a podcast. So first things first, it comes to planning and preparation. You have to choose a niche or target audience. So in my case, because I do music, I'm an independent music artist. So I'm not going to say I'm a subject matter expert, but I know what I'm talking about when it comes to being an independent music artist because I am one. I write my own music. I record my own music. I mix and master my own music, and I make my own beats. So I kind of know that whole process when it comes to being an independent music artist. So I chose for my podcast to be a podcast about independent music artists learning from other independent music artists, because at the end of the day, each one teach one. We can all learn from each other. So I figured as I interview independent music artists, other music artists could learn from the people that I was interviewing. And when I'm not interviewing people, I also come on and I share my own experiences and I give nuggets of things that I've experienced going down this yellow brick road of being an independent music artist. So now that you get all that out the way, you figure out what you want your podcast to be about. You got to figure out how long you want your podcast episodes to be. Now, I'm going to be honest. I wanted my podcast episodes to be short. I'm not a big fan. Well, let me take this back. I like long form podcasts. The reason why I chose for my podcast to be short, because I looked at it like this. I'm just being open, honest, and transparent with myself. I'm nobody. And I figured who wants to sit here and listen to me ramble on for 2 or 3 hours when I could give you everything you need in 20 to 30 minute chunks? So I figured people will most likely listen to what I got to say if I'm giving them to a short, quick, fast, in a hurry versus, taking a long time to get to the point. So that's why I chose for my podcast to be anywhere between, 15 and 30 minutes in length. When I'm interviewing a guest, most of those interviews go between 30, 45 minutes. So now, after you do all that, you got to figure out what you want your podcast name to be. Now, the reason why I chose Unaffiliated Creators Podcast, I'm going to break down what that means. So again, remember I told you guys that the premise of my podcast is centered around independent music artists. Well, just to say independent music artist sounds kind of boring. So I had to come up with a creative name to basically say independent music artist. So unaffiliated means that you're not affiliated with a particular group, organization, record label, whatever. So that's the unaffiliated part, indie. And then unaffiliated creators, because as a music artist, we're all creative people. When you're doing anything when it comes to art, if it's, being a music artist or, drawing, painting and things like that, you are a creative person. So I just put the two words together, unaffiliated creatives. And I'm going to be honest, the only bad thing about my podcast name is spelling unaffiliated can get kind of tricky. But outside of that, I thought it was a clever way to basically say independent music artists, i.e. unaffiliated creators. All right. Now, once you do that, you want to create a logo or, a brand. So if you look at, the stuff in the background, so I don't know if you can see what I'm pointing at right now. So that's the logo. That's the Unaffiliated Creatives logo. And, I got the logo and you can see it on my hat, you can see it on my sweatshirt. It's all about branding. So, I got the logo and I actually got the word spelled out. So anytime you see that, that lets you know that that's associated with Unaffiliated Creatives. I'm not saying that you got to have this stuff as soon as you start, because everything is a building process. I will say the most important thing is to start. Don't give yourself no excuses to start. Because I'm going to be honest. So you see this backdrop behind me. So when I first started, if you go all the way back to the very first podcast episode 1, I didn't have this backdrop. I just had it was like a dark gray, basically it was like a curtain or a sheet. And I don't even think I ironed it because it would have took too long to iron it. So it was wrinkled and everything. But I kept telling myself, I'm not going to use that as an excuse to start, because if you keep giving yourself excuses, you will never start. So my thing is just start it. And as you keep, going down the road and you keep doing more podcasts, you will continue to grow and get better. So again, I didn't have this backdrop at the very beginning, but as the thing kept going, I found ways to get better. Second thing you need to start figuring out is your equipment and your software. So with that being said, because people have asked me, hold on. All right, so the equipment that I use, the microphone, I have a Rode. You can't see the whole thing because it's kind of out of the frame a little bit, but I use a Rode podcast microphone. These headphones, these are like studio quality headphones. I can't remember the name, so y'all got to forgive me on that. But you don't have to have the most expensive headphones to make this work. Why is this not working? And some people ask me what software I use. So the software I use, so I probably go a little bit too far when it comes to the software. So let me see if I can pull this up so y'all can see it. So I use, and I didn't get paid for this. This is not a paid advertisement. This is just what I use. So I use the Rodecaster 2, the Rodecaster Pro 2. This is what I use. The reason why I like to use this is because when I go out and I interview guests, a lot of times I'm out in the field. I'm actually going out and I'm meeting these people outside, because I like to use different backgrounds. I like to use like art murals and different scenic backdrops for my podcast. And as you can see, let me see if I can turn around so you can see it. So with the Rodecaster Pro 2, you can input up to 4 microphones. You can input up to 4 headphones. And everything that you record, it records directly into the machine. So I like that. It gives you a little bit of flexibility. But I take it a step farther, because I guess, I go a little OCD with this. So even after I record the podcast into the Rodecaster Pro 2, I come back and then I use the recording software, Studio One, bring the audio into that. And then I cut out, some of the breaths and, if there's like pops and like background noise and anything that might be distracting. I try to clean up the audio as much as possible. And then I use Adobe Audition to master it. So that basically boosts up the levels to the point to where it's kind of industry standard. So when you're listening to the overall loudness and the fullness of the audio, it sounds like any other podcast out there. So those are the main things, and that's my format. And then after that, you want to choose whatever podcast hosting platform you want to use. Again, this is not a paid ad. I actually pay them every month to host my podcast. This is not a paid sponsorship. I'm just being open, honest, and transparent with my audience. I just want to let y'all know what I use to build my podcast from start to finish. So the platform that I use is Buzzsprout, because they're pretty easy to use. You just upload the audio from your podcast, and then there's a spot where you can put the words, you can put like what episode you're on, and you can give a description on what that episode is about. And then you can actually like set a day and a time that you want that audio podcast to get put on all the different DSPs. They put it on Spotify and other places. So again, I like Buzzsprout because they're kind of easy. They're probably one of the easy ones to use. Now there's some other platforms that you can use outside of Buzzsprout when it comes to, hosting your podcast. But again, that's what I use. So once you figure out what podcast hosting platform you want to use as far as being able to put the audio version of your podcast anyway, because there's actually two different parts to podcast depending on how far you want to go with this. That's the audio part. Then there's if you want to actually record video. So I actually record video on my podcast as well. And I put all of the video clips on all the social media platforms. I break it up into little chunks. I put the video clips on IG, on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes I put them on TikTok, but not that much because I noticed with TikTok, it's like, it's kind of hit or miss. And then I put them on YouTube Shorts. And then I take the full, podcast, the whole entire video, and I upload it as a regular video on YouTube. So that's kind of how you get the bang for the buck. So you put the audio out as just the audio podcast, and then you come back and then you take the video version of the podcast, and then you can put it on social media and you can post it on YouTube. So that's basically how I do, my podcast. Then, depending on how far you want to go with it, after you figure all that stuff out, then if you get to the point where you start getting so many downloads a month or so many listeners, you might get to the point where you want to start reaching out and you might want to start getting, either paid ads, or people might want to start paying for product placement. Other companies might want to pay you to place commercials on your podcast. Or you might want to get to the point where you start selling merch and things like that. Or, you can start going like the Patreon route where you can do like a paid subscription every month where you give people exclusive content that they can't just get on the regular, like regular YouTube and stuff like that. Again, you kind of got to be established and you have to be doing it for a while. You're not going to just be able to jump out of the gate, just, making all this money, getting all these, people to want to, drop commercials on your podcast and all of these, sponsorships and all of that stuff. You have to build a foundation first. You have to get, so many episodes. You got to kind of build your brand. You really got to build your audience up. And the stuff takes time. I mean, if you getting into this because you thinking you're going to get rich overnight, you might as well not even start. Because, I've been doing it for a while. And I'm not rich by no means. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm able to quit my regular 9-to-5 job just to do podcast. But I enjoy doing it. I enjoy interviewing the artists. I learn something every time I interview somebody. And I always, chop it up with my business partner, my man Prince. Me and him get together sometime and we chop it up on the podcast. He has his own podcast. And now I've been doing this thing where I interview with my son and we do this segment. And he's starting to record music. So now I'm going to probably start getting back on with him because we're going to start breaking down, the songs that we've been recording together. So there's a lot of different things you can do with the podcast. It gives you an outlet to be creative. It lets you get your thoughts out there, what's on your mind, your opinion, and all of that stuff. I would just tell anybody to start a podcast. The hardest thing, again, is just to start. Once you get started, and then you just keep finding different ways to reinvent yourself. You come up with different ideas. You find ways to get creative. And you just keep incorporating that into what you're doing and try to find ways to get better over time as you do it. And, of course, as you do it, your audience will start giving you feedback like, hey, maybe you should think about doing this, do that. And I'm not saying that you should do every idea that people give you, but a lot of times when people give you constructive criticism, they're giving you the criticism for a reason because they've seen stuff that you can do to possibly get better or get better engagement and things like that. So I hope this answered some of the questions that I've received on social media when it comes to how to start a podcast. Again, I haven't even been doing it for 3 years yet. But like I said, I've recorded over 100 episodes. I try my best to try to keep a goal. And I will say this before I get off of here. Give yourself a realistic goal of what you're trying to do when it comes to your podcast. So what do I mean by that? So one of the goals that I gave for myself when I first started was I just wanted to be consistent. Not that I was necessarily trying to be the best. Now, I do study the best of breed because to get better, you kind of got to see what the best are doing. But I gave myself a goal of, hey, can I at least put out one podcast episode a week? And I was able to do that for then 2 years straight. Now going into year 3, now I'm being a little bit more selective about when I want to put out episodes. I'm kind of playing with the algorithm. I'm trying to see, if you take so many weeks off, do you see a big dip? Or if you take a little bit of time off and come back, does it pretty much stay the same? Now I'm sprinkling in, different ideas, different things to add to the podcast because I'm trying to find the right mix of interviewing guests versus being just me by myself versus bringing on my business partner versus talking with my son versus going out in the streets and just like interviewing people and doing like the freestyles and the performance videos. I'm just trying to do all of that, what the saying goes, throw a lot of stuff against the wall and see what sticks. I'm kind of in that phase right now, but again, I'm trying to eliminate the excuses. I'm just trying to find a way to keep going. And one day I just hope all this stuff, works out. I hope I get to the point where I can be successful enough in the podcasting space or just being creative. It don't necessarily have to be podcasting. That maybe one day I will be able to quit my 9-to-5 job and I'll be able to focus all my efforts and energy into this kind of space. But I hope that I was able to help somebody out there again. Smash the like button, subscribe, retweet, share. Thanks for tuning in to the podcast. Y'all be good and stay safe.